Okay. Welcome back to the Rebel Tribe podcast. Today's episode is the first in a new conversation series that I'm calling The Next Chapter. This series is about what it looks like to move out of survival mode, not just financially, but in life, and begin building something that actually fits who you are now. Over these conversations, we'll be talking about confidence, health, purpose, money, creativity, and the quiet reinvention that so many women experience after 40. This isn't about fixing yourself, it's about giving yourself permission to grow into what's next. And today, we're starting that conversation with two amazing financial gurus. They know stuff. I've had Coach T on before. He helped us a lot with our debt reduction. And I also have Tiffany Thompson, who helps women bring clarity and confidence to their financial decisions. So this is not about perfection, guys. It's about becoming unstuck financially and building a future that actually fits your life. So let's dive in. Guys, say hello and introduce yourselves.
Hello, Tiffany Thompson here. I am the owner of Rooted Family Financial and Next Level Bookkeeping. So I help not only just women and individuals, but also business owners organize their finances, protect their assets with something we call living benefits, save money in a tax-free environment, or protect retirement accounts from the market loss. And I host specifically a group called Wine Women and Wealth, where we help women conquer both the woo-woo side of money and the practical side of money. So we work on our mindset and our practical put into use habits as well.
And that's why you needed to introduce yourself, because I would never have remembered all of that. You do a lot.
I do.
She's never once invited me to Wine, Women, and Wealth, and
I wonder why that is.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Tiffany, now's your chance. Consider it. Come on.
That's right.
Oh, I thought I was passing the mic.
Sorry.
We can't legally exclude men, so if you really want to come, but you might not like what you hear.
Um, I love it. I love it. Well, Melodian, thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it. I'm T.R. Laughlin. Everybody calls me Coach T. I am the director of operations at a local nonprofit called Five Keys Financial Coaching, which means we basically sit down and help people build spending plans and save for the future, get out of debt. All the things that were never taught in school that are just really good adulting. That's what we do, which means that I've looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people's budgets and generally help people with behavioral economics, which is the mindset, the habits, and the communication side of your financial planning. Not the investment guy, not the insurance guy. I'm the knife, fork, and spoon when it comes to personal finance. And so that's what I do.
Sweet. I'm so glad you're both here. We're going to have a really good conversation that a lot of women right now need to hear. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to ask you some questions that I've been dying to get answers for, some of them myself, to be honest, because, gee, go figure, I'm a woman over 40. And then I would like to get both of your perspectives on all of these because, again, it's Wine, Women, and Wealth for a reason. We think a little differently about certain things than the men do. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes we could use a little lesson. So I'd like to get both of your input on all of these if we could. Let's go. I want to figure out, first of all, why so many women over 40 feel like they should be further along financially than they are. Even if they're in a pretty good space, they still feel like they need to be further along than they are. Where do you see women getting stuck the most at this stage?
I know T has some really good points about this one specifically we talked about earlier, so go ahead.
Thank you, Tiffany. I don't know that it's women specific to the answer that I have, but definitely for folks over 40, there's a lot of things that converge all at the same time, and they all have to do with your finances, and they can make things they can make things a little scary. And so one of them is, nobody's feeling prepared for retirement and the pressing idea of that next stage. You start really feeling it pretty heavy in your 40s. At the same time, a lot of times you've got the kiddos that are starting to think about college, and so kind of being prepared for what that's going to mean from a financial perspective. It's one of the busiest times of your life is right in your 40s, up until, about 55. There's a lot of things going on. There's aging parents, and usually it's the highest income earning time of your life, but life has just followed at pace for that increase. And so it's a convergence of several things that are going on. So that's what I've seen.
What do you think, Tiffany?
Yeah, and so on my side, all of that leads to a lack of retirement savings. The average age Americans start saving for retirement is between 53 and 55, and it is because they raise the kids, they get them through school, and all of a sudden they're in their 50s and they're like, oh, I have to retire in 10 to 15 years. Now you've lost the time value, you've lost the time that you have compound interest working against you. And so something I like to teach people before they get to that point is you can start saving small amounts of money in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and that will compound into larger piles of money because the older you are, the more amount of money you have to put into a product to make it work to actually retire long term. Um, that doesn't mean it's not too late to start. Confucius said the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, but the next, or 20 years ago, but the next best time would be today. So sometimes they just put off that savings or put off that protection until it's too late. And then they get to a spot where
You know
they
what?
don't know what to do.
Oh, never mind. I'm okay. I thought You'll have to excuse me, everybody. I am like either recovering from the flu or coming down with the flu. I'm not sure which, but I am not totally here. And I thought I thought I forgot to hit the little record button, so I just went to check. I'm sorry. Continue. My bad.
No, you're good. I was coming to an end. So yes, about the time people are starting to feel that lack of savings, that lack of knowing what to do next, and it's the perfect time for them to learn what do you do next.
I wish somebody had taught me that when I was in my 20s. Would have been great.
Hmm.
So, what's different about money conversations after 40, say, compared to like your 20s and 30s? What's different, Tiffany?
Um, I would say the readiness to save. Usually that's the point where like you got to start saving, so they're a little more likely to jump the gun and have the conversation because they just know that that is going to be something they're up against in the next 20 years if they don't start somewhere. And um, can you repeat that question real quick? Lost my
What,
thought.
yeah. What's different about money conversations after 40, say, compared to like your 20s or 30s?
Okay. So also, a big part of what I do is protect people's assets and protect their income and protect them from, a medical diagnosis from wiping them out financially. And when you try to talk to a 20-year-old about life insurance protection or being worried about a terminal illness or a chronic illness or a critical accident, it's never going to be the 20 and 30-year-olds. I actually have a lot of people around me who think, it's never going to be us. But people are getting sick at younger ages these days. People are up against accidents and really long-term uh, illnesses, accidents that make them uninsurable for the future. And so I love to have the conversation early, but I know that I'm not taken as seriously by 39 and under as I am with 40 and over because they're starting to see those effects of people that didn't have protection in place or people are starting to get sick and they're just a little more open to having the conversation because they know they need to save and they know they need to protect. So there's a more willingness there for my niche.
I think one of the
Right.
big things that I've seen for people that are over 40 is at some point you decide to to play to your strengths and to know kind of where you are and what you're dealing with. And so, as a financial coach, we've identified 6 different money personality types for each person. To know what yours is, both the strengths and the weaknesses of each one of those personality types is important because at the age of 40, the idea of reinventing all of your past money scripts to rewrite your personality is probably going to be a more difficult process than accepting where you are, adopting a no shame, no blame mindset, and taking the point of it's about progress, not perfection, and moving forward with whatever tools that you have. And so I think that has been key for a lot of folks that I've dealt with.
Oh, I know that would have been amazing because I can just, well, I have personal experience. My husband and I have distinctly different money personalities. It would have been great to understand mine and his and how they could work together. We're there now finally, but it took an awful long time and some,
Mm.
shall we say, animated discussions to get where we
Well,
are.
let me do a pop quiz with you, okay? There's 6 money personality types. I want you to think about the one that probably stands out for you and the one that stands out for your husband. You guys have been married a while, so you'll probably be able to pick it up pretty well, okay? And so
Okay.
we'll do a little exercise.
Okay.
There's a spender and a saver. There's a risk taker and an avoider. Okay. There's a giver and a planner. Okay. Those are the 6 basic money personality types. If you had to pick the one that you have, what would you say that yours is?
I think I'm a combination of the risk taker and giver, and he's
Okay.
definitely the saver planner.
Yeah. Risk taker and giver. And then he's a saver planner. So here's my next question. If you had the opportunity, so that's your primary and your secondary, your husband has a primary and secondary, would you rather have both of your guys' personalities exactly the same or have them a little bit different?
Well, there were times when I wish we both thought about it the same way. It would have saved, like I said, some of those more animated discussions. But now I think we both, especially when it comes to the risk taking, because sometimes you just have to. Sometimes you just have to be willing to take that risk. And it's good that I've been able to sit down sometimes and show him why the risk is worth taking. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm glad now that we have a little bit of a difference, but there were times in the early years when I wished we thought more alike.
So let's take a personality trait, a personality type that neither one of you guys have. So let's take the avoider, okay?
Okay.
The avoider doesn't really like to talk about money. They don't really love spending time getting into the weeds. What do you think is a positive attribute of somebody who has an avoidant personality when it comes to their finances? A positive one.
A positive one? I have no idea. Well, I mean, I can't think of one because if you're always avoiding discussing the issue, that can't be
Yeah.
good.
Tiffany, help me out here. What do you think a good positive attribute would be for having a spouse that has the avoidant personality for finances?
Well, it lets the other person take control. And the avoidant probably doesn't stress or hold as much like emotional connection to the money as maybe a saver or a planner would, which is a good thing for them, but it also is going to stress out somebody that's trying to plan or save. But I would say, yeah, no stress and being able to hand it over.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When it comes to finances, a lot of people think like the top personality types are those that are good at saving and those that are good at planning. Like that would be the top. My contention is that they're all equal. They're all valuable. They all have positive attributes. They have negative associations that go with them. And to see in your spouse what the positives are is a great place of strength to work from. And so, like you said, an avoidant personality is going to have a lot less fights and they're going to carry a lot less stress. And so, back to the idea that you're built a certain way, your spouse is built in a certain way. If those are exactly the same, you guys are going to carry the same pitfalls. They're going to be big, right? And so, if you're a saver, that means you're probably a saver planner. Both of you guys are saver planners. That means it's really going to be hard to go and have a lot of fun on vacation, and buying gifts for people will probably stress you guys out. And so, like, that's a big pitfall that you're going to have to make sure that your finances are properly aligned with how you're built. If you're slightly different, then you get to complement each other, which means you'll have more little tiny bumps along the way, more arguments or deep conversations, possible hurdles to overcome, but they're not going to be as big. And so, like, that's the idea. You keep yourself in good balance with somebody that's not built exactly the same. And so that's one of the things that we try to teach people right off the bat is to appreciate the differences in your spouse or partner, so that you know kind of what you're getting out of that from a positive standpoint.
Hey, you know
And
what?
that,
This year I planned for Christmas. I had a Christmas budget. I spent the exact amount of money that I wanted to spend. And when I left, I looked at my ex-husband and I said, "This is one of the first times I haven't been stressed about buying gifts." And it was just because I had a plan and a budget. So I knew how much to spend. Whereas normally it's like swipe, swipe, swipe. Oh no, what happened? Rent's due next week. I planned for it and it was a really great feeling.
and to me, not having someone having an avoider would drive me crazy because that means now I am solely responsible pretty much for carrying the entire financial load. And that would drive me crazy, number one, because that's a lot of responsibility. Yeah, the control is great, but also the responsibility if you make the wrong decision. And nothing, if it's the woman who's the avoider, nothing irritates me more when I'm talking to women who maybe want to get started in a business or something, and I'm like, how much do you realistically need to make? How much is enough? And a lot of times they don't really know because they don't know how much the house payment is. They don't know how much the car payment is because they let their husband handle all the finances. And that just winds me up because it's like, how can you not know these things?
Yeah,
But
there is a difference between understanding and appreciating how your spouse is wired, so that you can start from a position of strength, and then also knowing like if you yourself are wired in a certain way that you want to avoid certain things. And so I completely agree. Avoidance is never a an ingredient to the recipe for success. Doesn't matter what you're doing. But you also don't want to have kind of a negative position with your spouse, because it doesn't really allow for good growth that way. So you gotta learn to appreciate and then compensate, right? Appreciate and then compensate, and that's what teamwork actually looks like. But at 40, you got to realize too, at 40, at that stage, the idea that you're going to be able to rewire or change your entire makeup becomes a little bit more difficult. And so we got to give ourselves more grace. We got to give our partners more grace as we move forward on trying to accomplish our goals at the same time feeling all the stress. So that's one of the things that I try to teach people to do is to have the good goals, but also have the good grace.
so 40 is often the time, and I know this because it happened to me. This is when I retired from the military. I was about 40. I moved out here, suddenly realized that Navy skills don't necessarily translate into job skills, or if they do, it's very hard to explain why, you know, why would a cryptologist make a good hire? It was very hard to explain that whole, oh, I'm really good with details and I see things and I'm great with pattern recognition because that's what I do. But all of that stuff kind of comes to a realization when you start looking at that age and you start beating yourself up because you're not further ahead. What do you wish women do? What do you wish more women understood about money before they hit that point, before they start beating themselves up because they're not ready to retire?
So my
Tiffany?
mind kind of goes to like if you spend a lot of time maybe raising the kids and then you're coming up with a like lack of a resume, maybe not no marketable skills. I'm very blessed. As I was a stay-at-home mom, I got a college degree in the background because I actively knew that I needed to be doing something in the background to move myself forward. So I actually got an online business degree, and then shortly after that, I said, "Okay, I'm ready to start making money. I don't want to keep learning." I bought a bookkeeper business launch course with the child tax credit back in 2020. I used that to start a business while my kids were napping or at school, drop them off very short periods. And so I'm an avid believer in always sharpening the knife, keeping the skills going. These days we have access to so much information. The certifications we're able to get are mostly accessible online. You can go to the Fayetteville Public Library and get skills assessments and like actual certifications in things like aviation and uh, cooking, for example, or any of the trades. Um, so I just recommend finding the resources that we have. Especially, I don't know that this is a local podcast, but Northwest Arkansas is a gold mine of people wanting to help you grow and advance. And so always have that in mind of maybe what's the passion, what's the skill you can work on, what's something you can market when it does come time that you do have time available. Because raising kids takes a lot of time, but we got to remember who we are as women as well, and not just get lost in motherhood and wifely duties. And so my recommendation would be to always keep learning, keep sharpening the knife as much as you can.
Yeah, I would. I'd piggyback on that. Sometimes just meeting with somebody who knows you really well can see things that we don't often see inside of ourselves. And so, finding a mentor, somebody that's older, wiser, been there, done that, who can speak a little bit of life into us in the way of like, I don't think I'm qualified, or I don't think I'm good enough to go and do this, that, or the other thing, and then they're like, no, you're actually really good at this, and this. And it's like, oh, it starts to change things. I was self-employed for 20 something years. Started when I was 21 with my first business, which meant that I went basically straight from high school into owning my own business, the path to get there. Skipped out on college altogether. And so when I wanted to do a career change from being self-employed, um, and at 40, so I had just turned 40. I went to a few of my mentors and just said, hey, what are some of the things that I should be looking into? How do my skills that I've had from the past translate into the jobs of the future? And constantly be thinking about that. And like Tiffany said, there's just so many resources out there. And one of the biggest ones is your network, the people that you know, that already know you, like you, trust you, that want to see you succeed and can speak truth and life into you into those transitional times. It's a big deal to have that kind of network.
I
I could
agree.
piggyback off that just a little bit. I had a LinkedIn coach one time that we were supposed to be filling out our bios and, um, describing ourselves and putting ourselves out there. And unfortunately, we're not taught to talk highly of ourselves.
Especially as women. Did we lose her?
Usually, if you like kind of start bragging, just or bragging. Oh, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah, so we're not taught to talk highly of ourselves. It's called boasting or bragging, and we're just kind of taught to think small of ourselves. So one of the exercises this LinkedIn coach gave me was to text 5 people and ask them for 3 words that described you. Um, and every single person had just such great things to say about me that I couldn't have found 15 great things to say about me at the time of doing the exercise. And so checking into the people that do love you and are able to see you in a different light, because we are our biggest critics. We'll put ourselves down very easily, but checking into your network and asking what they see in you is definitely a good practice.
So that's like how I know my business coach, when I started out, was always telling me it was all about mindset, that I had to have a wealth mindset. How much of financial struggle after 40 do you think is really about mindset and not math?
For me, mindset is everything. We literally create the reality we live in with our mindset and the way we think. And one reference that's coming to mind is in the Millionaire Mindset, he talks about a financial thermostat. And so if you've always made 40 grand and you have floated around 40 grand for 20 years, and let's say the next year you found a way to make 60 grand, if you don't work on the mindset to stay in that 60, 80, 100 grand advancement, that it's like the thermometer turns on and the heat brings you back down, or the cool brings you back down, and you're right back to 40. So you've got to like almost convince yourself that you're worthy of this. This is your new life. Yep. Okay. I'll pause. So I think mindset is everything. That's what we do at Wine Women and Wealth specifically. My favorite book to read about once a year is You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. And it is all about getting the garbage out of our brains. And one of my affirmations that has literally changed my life in the past 4 months is I tell myself several times a day that everything in my life is always working out for me. Everything in my life is always working out for me. And I have manifested some huge things in just the last 4 months of changing that mindset. And that puts me looking for opportunities instead of looking for setbacks. That puts me looking for collaborations instead of competition. When you truly believe that everything is working out for you, or you say it so many times, you trick yourself into believing it if it's still not happening.
Yep.
And eventually the universe catches up with you. I keep glitching out. Apologies.
It's okay. At least it's not me. Usually it's me. I have very bad internet. So my people are used to it. My audience is used to it because I have sketchy at best internet. We all know that. I live at the end of a dirt road and it's not always the best. So it will all be good. How about you,
Yeah.
Coach? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't necessarily put like math on one side and mindset on the other, but I think of them kind of in a circular motion. You've got the math that informs the mindset that informs the motivation that fuels into the math. And I see it as circular, and they all three kind of work together. Henry Ford says you can only manage what you measure, and so I think that it's really important. We would never tell somebody that they have a goal, but we don't want to write it down, or we want it to be very nebulous. Like we would want them to make it very specific. And so if I get a couple and they come in and they're like, we want to buy our next house, one of the first things that I have them do is go house shopping, even if they're a year down the road. I want them to know what the price is, what the down payment is, what the monthly payments are going to be, and the interest rate as it stands now, even though it's going to change, because I want to give a measurable target on that refrigerator every single morning so that when they go to work, their motivation and their mindset is geared towards whatever that goal is. And so the math fuels the mindset. You got to know your numbers. On the income side, you got to know your numbers on the expense side so that you know what your goal is going to be and how long it's going to take to get you there. And then you use that to fuel your motivation and to change your mind every single day when you go and do that job that you love or don't love. When you go and make the sacrifice, what is the greater purpose behind that? You know, our passion follows our purpose, and so we got to know what our why is when we're thinking about going to work, when we're thinking about showing up. And so having a visual representation illustrated by the math makes a lot of sense.
I actually had to work with a mindset coach for a little bit because I grew up poor. And I mean, I grew up poor and I had years and years of programming of, money doesn't grow on trees and people like us aren't made to be rich and all of those beliefs that were just drilled into me from birth. And I actually had to work with a coach to overcome those. What money belief do you see holding women back the most? I mean, especially women who are smart, capable, hardworking, and yet, like me, it took me a very long time to finally acknowledge that I was capable of more than I was doing and actually make a decent living.
I keep bringing up motherhood. I'm very familiar that not every mother or not every woman is a mother, but women in general, again, like I said earlier, we're not taught to think highly of ourselves. We're not taught to be loud and proud and we're kind of taught to like kind of sit down and mind our P's and Q's and be polite and not go after the things that we want and maybe self-sacrifice ourselves for our families or for our husbands and maybe prioritize other people ahead of ourselves. And I see that as a huge block for women because we can have both. You can have work-life balance. You can make a decent amount of money and still love and support and show up for your family. My favorite part about being in sales is I'm not exchanging dollars for time anymore. So it gives me a whole lot more freedom to do what I need to do with my family and balance all of the things. But and then imposter syndrome, I would say, is another big one. And that's again, not necessarily a woman thing. I see it a lot in the entrepreneurship world, especially those first 3 years you're in business. Like you are just convincing yourself over and over and over, like, I got this, I got this, I got this. When there's this kind of devil on your shoulder, like, you don't know anything. Why would they work with you? You don't have the experience. So combating work life balance and imposter syndrome are really important for women to acknowledge.
Yeah, what I've seen is that if there are debts on the books inside the family, the women have a tendency to carry the weight of that differently. Um, it's there's emotional ties to having that. So oftentimes in the relationship, men and women will go about things slightly different, and so a man may be thinking, longer term about security, but a woman is feeling like, what do we have on hand? Like, what do we have now to get the security? And so, but both are chasing after the same thing. We want to feel okay, we want to feel safe. But when you have debts on the books, when you've got things that you owe, and you're feeling that, and you're feeling the pressure of that, there's usually a lot of shame that's kind of tied up into that. And so I would say that that's probably one of the biggest mindsets that I've seen, um, is a weightiness with the security and a heaviness with the debt, if there is any.
So if a woman is feeling behind financially, what's the first thing she should stop doing, like mentally or emotionally? What should the first thing she stop doing?
Well, it's hard to put my finger on what she's doing wrong because I don't know her. Um, but step number one is always come to a budget. Tell your money where to go instead of wonder where it went. It's just so important. And so every time you receive a lump sum of money, even if it's just listing out what that one list of money is for, what that one chunk of money is for, because budgeting can get very complex and very big. And then you can start pulling out, 12 months and setback accounts and adding all these different pieces. But always have a plan for your money, I think, is the first step. Because again, avoiding it or ignoring it, then it just kind of slides away. And you're again asking yourself, where did all my money go? Um, I've also noticed women hold a very emotional tie to money. So maybe get a little bit more logical. Warren Buffett says he's never made an emotional decision about his money in his whole life. And that's why he's so rich now, because he's always used logic, because it is a numbers game. As much as we've been talking about mindset, it is a numbers game. And look into different books and resources. What that book I mentioned earlier, the Euro Baddest at Making Money, one of the questions is like list out 10, 15 ways that you can start making money right now. Um, we're in the land of opportunity over here. We have so many opportunities at our fingertips. We've just got to have the thought before it becomes a reality and before we can move our actions to align. So yeah, tap into the resources. I'd already said that, but there's so much information out here to overcome money stress.
Yeah, I think just knowing yourself really well is the first step to making any long-lasting change. And so if there's a habit that you have or a mindset that is leading to a habit that you have, name it, give it a name. If you notice that you're spending too much money in one particular area, which is, usually the case when we're talking about money stress, that's controllable. There's a whole bunch of money stress that you can't control. in the short term, but you can control in the long term. In the short term, there's only a handful of things that you can do anything about. And oftentimes it feels like a big bunch of things, but there's really only a handful. And so if you're struggling with some of the handful of things, just to know yourself, know the pattern. Am I spending more when there's certain stressors in my life? Am I spending more when I hang out with certain people? Am I using shopping as a coping mechanism for my life? So, for years I've used food as coping, like me personally, and I know that when I get in the car, that's like the worst time for me when it comes to building good habits around my eating. One of the things that I have to do is I have to keep healthy snacks in the car. And I just do. And so, what are some of those healthy versions of spending money that you can recognize what the triggers are, recognize what your cues are, and then short circuit those to make sure that you're having some wins. And then when you get those wins, how do you celebrate those wins? And so that's with the controllables. I do think that most people think that there's more kind of in your control, or more in your area of responsibility than actually is. A lot of things you've already signed on the dotted line, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And so rather than feeling like that's something that you need to wrestle with on a monthly basis, it's kind of a copy and paste every month. So if you've already bought a car, you've already bought a house, like those payments are kind of set. Your utilities, there's really not too much you can do about. Vacations every year, like you can plan ahead, but they're not right now. There's only a handful of areas that you need to focus in on. And so focus on the controllables, control the controllables. And then from that standpoint, just know the mindset shift that really needs to take place is usually an increase in income. The vast majority of people that I'm talking to right now, it's not that they're having a spending issue, it's that the lifestyle cost of living has increased so rapidly that it's outpacing the income that has been made. And that's even right here in NWA, one of the most affluent areas around, is the costs have gone up and it's massively outpaced the pay. So really the mindset shift that people need to be focusing in on, aside from the very few controllables, is that's right. How do we make more money? How do we make more money? You know, I was sitting down with a family of five who's caring for an aging parent, and they're making really good money for 2021. But for 2025, that same amount of money just doesn't translate. And you know, we would look at that number back then and be like, I don't understand why you can't live on, this amount of money. But you look at it now and it's really easy to tell. It's like, well, it just costs a lot more to have a family of five and care for an aging parent at this stage of the game.
So, talking about habits, if someone is overwhelmed and doesn't know where to start, what's the one financial habit? We talked about mindset habits. What's the one financial habit that gives maybe the biggest sense of control?
This is specifically what TR helps people with, so I'll let him take this. I know he helps with the spending plans, he helps with the habits, and he helps with the consistency of those things. So I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, the habits. Every time you do something positively, you're voting, you're casting a positive vote for your future self, right? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to rack up wins. And the idea here is that you start small and wherever you're at, and then just move forward. And so sometimes if it's been a really hard point of contention with you and your spouse, like just having the conversation is a massive win. Sometimes if you're already like to that point, it's just sitting down and doing the math and putting the numbers on paper, can be a big win. Most people, when I ask them, do you have a budget? They say yes. When I ask them their numbers, they give me their numbers, and they're almost always incorrect in a few areas, that are a few substantial areas by half. Most people budget by like feelings versus sitting down and actually putting the numbers on paper. The very first exercise that I have everybody do is I want you to do an autopsy on your spending for the last 3 months for three very specific areas. And what usually happens is it's so shocking that it motivates them to move forward with change because they think they're spending one thing, but in reality they're spending another. And so if you've already done that, or if you already have that, that's like the mid-tier level, and you're moving from there to just kind of ratcheting things up a little bit better. There's all kinds of tips, tools, and tricks for that. But the very first thing, the very first habit, scheduling conversations with your spouse or scheduling a time when you can actually sit down and look at those numbers in reality very specifically.
So, what should women over 40 prioritize financially? I mean, especially if they're balancing family and business, and you got that family that's caring for an older relative. So, we're balancing family, business, caregiving. What do we need to prioritize? Tiffany?
I Saving is a priority, but debt management is also a priority because if you're paying your debt somewhere between 20 and 30% and your savings is earning somewhere between 1 and 8%, it is never going to come together. That compound interest in that debt is going to turn into an undefeatable monster. So for me, debt management is definitely a main focus. You can start saving small amounts of money in the background while you're still working on the debt, but um, getting the debt controlled, paying off the vehicles, paying off the high interest um, loans or monthly payments. Because once you start opening up that money, that gives you so much more freedom for saving for the college, saving for the retirement. I mean, if you've got a $300 minimum credit card payment and that's not even touching the surface, that's $300 a month you would open up in savings versus paying on something behind you. Easier said than done over here. Loans are a dime a dozen. It's so easy. Sign here. Now you're paying 10, 15, literally 30% interest for years. Years. It's almost impossible to get ahead of. So when you got lump sums, I say you just got to attack that debt, or you're never going to get ahead.
Yeah, Tiffany's great at helping people with long-term planning and to think towards their end of life years and then retirement years and things like that. So I'll definitely defer to her on that one. But Tiffany, can you explain the idea of opportunity cost?
Yes. Opportunity being, so let's say you have $100 today that you can go and spend. You could take it to a restaurant, you could take your family out, you can go have an outing, or you could save that $100 for the future, grow it at 8% interest, and now you have $300 when you're in retirement. Is this the direction? Um, so you got to think like, what opportunity could you give up now to get that pay later on? Or is the meal that important? Is it a birthday meal that's going to make a core memory? Is it a mini golf outing that's, this big annual thing? Like prioritize what is important, but also recognize what you're robbing yourself in the future if you're spending that money now.
That makes sense. So, then what is something that women think that they should be doing with money? Because we are the ones that, we are the curators of the family memories and all of that. So what is something that we think we should be doing with money that maybe actually isn't as important as we think?
Something that comes quick to me would be big extravagant birthday parties or birthday presents or these big Christmases. You spend thousands of dollars on your kids, and now 2 days later they're back to playing the same video game system they had last year. Don't know if anybody's ever experienced that. I have three sons, and that is a very common practice. One of the leaders in my company actually tells a story of how he got tired of buying his kids Christmas presents every year and then them forgetting. And so one year he's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to open him up a tax-free indexed account and I'm not buying presents this year. So that year, all of his kids got a piece of paper in a folder under the tree. And he says, his 14-year-old daughter comes to him. And he says, what is this? And he kind of explains, it's a savings for your future. And she said, Dad, you're such a jerk. Like I wanted makeup and clothes and shoes. And he's like, well, I'm tired of buying you stuff. And so fast forward 20 years. She's ready to go buy a brand new car. She goes to the leasing office at the dealership, and they make a deal on the car, and of course brings dad to haggle down the price because you don't take the first price you were given. Bring somebody if you don't have haggling skills. Um, Gets a cost for a car. Calls her tax-free indexed account. They say wire or a check. How do you want it? She takes a withdrawal from this policy that her dad started her at 14 years old, pays cash for the brand new car, so she's not paying interest to the car dealership. And then her dad says, well, you were going to make payments to them, so make payments on yourself, pay your money back into this policy so that your money just grows that much more. And she had this tool of an infinite bank that she's using, and she's paying herself the interest, and she's gaining that, and she's not sitting in the car dealership. So you could be saving money in places that maybe seem like a huge priority right now, like thousands of dollars for Christmas is not. Back to that opportunity cost. Is it really going to make a difference in their life right now? Or is that $2,000 going to make a huge difference in their life when they're 30 and they want to start a business, or when they're 20 and they want to go to college, or when they want to buy a car, or when they want to get married? So, um, yeah, I would say big extravagant birthday parties and Christmases are something that I have done away with for the past couple of years.
Hmm. Yeah, Melodian, have you ever seen the shows that they help people who are hoarders turn into like, non-hoarders? You ever seen this?
I
Like,
watch very little television, so no.
okay, well, there's all kinds of shows that do this. There's this one particular lady, she was doing it, and to help people, she would bring out things in chunks and say, okay, does this have value to you? And at first, everything in the whole house has value. But then when you like break it down and you say, okay, well, when was the last time you touched it or looked at it or played with it or did something with whatever this particular object is? And it's like, well, it's been 3 4 5 years, um, or stuff in the attic or the back of the closet. One of the things that I try to do as a coach is when I never try to assign my values to somebody else's. And so if somebody came to me and said, Coach T, this $400 spot on my budget, this is to go buy Cheetos every month. And I'm not a huge fan of Cheetos. I would never say, you know what you need to do? You really need to cut out the Cheeto budget. What I might find is they're buying these little packs of Cheetos and taking them around to all the neighborhood kids because that's what their grandpa did with them when they were small. Like the point is, and it's a crazy example, but the point is you never know what somebody values. But to ask the question is important. Does what I'm spending my money on have some sort of value, or am I using it for some other particular purpose? And if I'm using it for a different purpose, do I want to change that? Because I want to reroute that because I have a greater purpose or a different priority. But me as a coach, I would never say, you know, I spent $250 on a meal this year because my aunt really wanted this one particular thing, and it was a celebratory time, and there was a new restaurant opening, and the whole bit. Now, I wouldn't typically do that, but I can tell you it had a tremendous amount of value for me and my family to go there. And yes, there was opportunity cost involved with that because I'm not able to take that money and put it in a different deal. But I know that I have value around celebrating milestones in a person's life, and so I've set borders and boundaries around that number, and I allow myself freedom to be able to spend in those ways. So the big thing is everyone has different values, and there's no way that anybody can really say, this is a value that you shouldn't have versus this particular value over here. Like there can't be a hierarchy because everybody has different association with things and stuff and celebrations and stuff like that.
I had to laugh listening to both of you because when Tiffany said getting married, thoughts sprang to my first marriage that I spent a good chunk on that lasted a whole 6 years. Okay. And then the second one, which was like him, me, the two kids, and my best friend is my maid of honor, and his friend didn't even make it, got lost on the way. And so we just snatched, believe it or not, we just snatched some guy off the street that was walking by the chapel and was like, hey, we need two witnesses. What are you doing right now? And we're on year 40. Okay. So the big extravagant weddings. Yes, if I could have all the money I spent on my first wedding now, I'd be happy.
But
And
it's
then when
something
you
that it's something that had value to you at the time. And so I'm sure there was somebody, or there was a thought briefly that came up like, maybe we should do something different with this money. And it's like, no, I want to go to this wedding. Like you knew that you were spending a good amount of money, but at the time it had value. Now, looking back, it's different, right? It has a different set of values. But at that time, at that moment in your life, that was an important place for you to spend your money.
maybe right now I'd rather have the money.
There
But
you go. There's three versions of you. There's the here and now, there's the midterm you, and there's the long-term you. And what's really hard is balancing all three of those versions of you out in equal outcome. Usually you're gonna weigh it heavy towards one, either the now, the midterm, or the long term.
so what's something that women think they should be doing with their money that I don't know how I want to put this. We talk a lot about reinvention after 40. I mean, that's kind of the age when most women sit back and go, I'm not happy with where I'm at. I'm just, my kids have left. My husband's working all the time. I've been a stay-at-home mom maybe, or I didn't have the career I wanted because I had the kids and I had, how does how does income growth fit into that whole conversation of reinvention after 40?
Well, it definitely starts with knowing what you want. When you know what you want, the universe is 10 times more likely to give you what you want because it knows what you want. And I think that's where so many people struggle is they get stuck in the kind of rat race hamster wheel and they kind of forgot to dream and they kind of forgot to even think about what they want. And their life has just turned into obligation and priority, but not what they truly want. And so if you have the opportunity, dig deep and take some time and like we are our own bosses. Like we can put ourselves in the situations that we want to be put in, but we've got to have the thought before we can enter that space. Another reference from Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I really liked that book when I read it. Whatever space you want to join in, like just enter the corridor of that space and start making connections. So like if you want to pivot to a hairdresser, get a job as a front desk person at a hairdresser. Like you want to get into the finance at a car dealership, figure out how you can hang around there and meet some of the same people. Or so really, it's just a matter of knowing where you want to go and inserting yourself in that space. Again, access to all those resources. Like we can head in so many directions these days, but we'll get burnt out and lost and confused if we don't actually set the path in front of us and know where we're going.
That's great. I love the proximity principle. What's that? You are the sum of the five people that you hang around with the most. And so if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I think the idea of surrounding yourself with people, like-minded people who want you to go far will be one of the first steps that a person should take if they're looking at reinventing themselves. What is the information that you're putting in your brain? And if you don't have those people, the information is out there. You can join groups. You can like Facebook groups. You can join, listen to podcasts, read books. There's all kinds of ways to make sure that you're filling your brain with the things that are going to give you the outcome that you desire. So yeah, I agree with Tiffany. Start off with the right mindset. Get yourself to thinking about it. Start dreaming again if you haven't done that in a while, and then put yourself around people that are genuinely for you, or if they're not for you specifically, they're in a place that you want to be. And that's the golden placement. It's always been that way. It's about who you know, not what you know. And so if you're looking at reinventing, fill your brain with a little bit of knowledge, fill your life with a whole lot of people.
So I'm kind of went through that process. I don't want to say reinvention really. Um, I look at like my whole business, like everything every year around December, January. And this year was it was kind of intense because it made me, I have a business coach, and the first thing she did in January was inform me that this was our $1 million year and we were going to create one new income stream every month. And as soon as she said that, I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to work that hard. I'm 68. My husband's retired now. I don't want to do the stuff that would be necessary to do that. And so, yeah, it was like a whole reinvention, refocusing. But my point is, this is kind of what I do is like I help women determine, okay, I need extra money. What can I do? What's your take on women creating additional income streams later in life? Is it a smart move? Is it unnecessary pressure? Is it like me when it's like, okay, I don't want to do that. Okay. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, let me ask you some questions before we answer that here. So is in this scenario, is a person coming and asking, should I make more money, or I want to make more money? How do I do it?
I think there are a lot of the women I talk to haven't really given it thought. So they're like wishing that they had more money, or they wishing they had money to send on something like, oh, hey, band camp, band camp's coming up. I wish I had the money to send my kid.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, have you thought about making some additional income? Or for me, especially for women my age and stuff, it's like, oh, I just discovered I'm only getting, X number of dollars in Social Security. I can't live on that. Okay, let's create some additional income.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times
Yeah,
they just look at
generating
me
enough
like,
income for your family to thrive is one of the most underrated things that people talk about. But what you're talking about, I think, is creating a business or side hustle or something that you can do to earn enough income to actually get the things that you want. Not necessarily creating a company or a business structure, but creating enough income that leads to something else. Am I getting that right?
yeah, I mean, right. When I say that, a lot of times women look at me like, I don't want to start a business. Okay, I get that. It's kind of like me. I don't want to create a new income stream every month. Okay, I just don't. That's way too much work and pressure for me right now. I don't want to do that. But you don't have to create a great big business to bring in additional income. I mean, you can do small things, a little small side hustle that brings in enough. When people come to work with, that's the first question I ask them is, how much is enough? Tell me how much is enough. How much money do you have to make to get what you really want to do? If you just want to send your kid to band camp every year, how much money is that? How much extra do you need? And be surprised at how easy it is to do that. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think multiple income streams are super important, especially if you are in a self-employed space, because then, if something maybe starts lacking over here, you can focus somewhere else a little bit. I think at one point I had about 5 income streams, and one of them being like carpooling and dropping a kid off after school for 20 bucks a day. It paid for my gas plus some. So then I got like 40 extra bucks, and then I use that 40 extra bucks to play Texas Hold'em because that's what I do for fun. And so like funded my hobby and paid for my gas. And so just kind of back to that knowing what you want and knowing what you need. Because yeah, if you don't want $1 million, then there's no reason to work hard and do the things you don't want to do. If you only need $1,000, you can sell loaves of bread to make $1,000, over a few months. And so always knowing the specifics is super important, and knowing what you need versus what you want. I had one more there, but yeah, I think I'm a hustler of all sorts. I love having different ways to make money, and that might just be my ADHD millennial brain loving to do five things at once. But for me, it keeps it diversified, and I don't get bored, right?
For sure. So yeah, we do business coaching with a lot of folks, and our business coaching is very, very small. We don't ever go to like enterprise type companies, and so we'll spend a lot of time working with local small business solopreneur type folks. And I'll tell you the thing that if somebody was to say I wanted to generate income, but I don't necessarily want to create a company, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them list out a list of resources, and I'm going to look at that list, and then I'm going to have them list out additional resources they didn't even think of. And the resources might be, um, I am a part of five groups of people. I have a garage, I have a truck, I have, whatever it is. I have a skill. I can bake really good banana bread. You know, these are resources that people underestimate, and it's easy to turn those into income. You take your resources, you turn them into income. It's all it is. And the cool part about doing that is if you're not trying to create a company, you're just trying to generate a certain amount of income, you can turn the faucet on, you can turn the faucet off. And lots of people do that. And I helped a lady about 4 years ago who had a company. She had a community. The company was doing really well out of Bentonville. She had three employees. It was just getting a little bit chaotic. I helped her to pare it down and make it a lot simpler and add some additional revenue streams that were more hands off, which was amazing. Fast forward 3 years later, her husband come in. Her husband had lost the job, and had put out several hundred applications to try and get another one. In his particular industry, he was competing with tons of people, so he didn't get rehired very quickly. And now the idea of turning that faucet up was the first time that had ever happened. It's like, okay, well, we lost one income, we now have a business, and what would it look like for us to just crank that up? And so that's a whole different conversation. But you never know what things are going to happen. My number one business piece of advice for somebody wanting to get a business started is to start smaller than what you think. And so if you want to have a restaurant, don't go for the brick and mortar, don't go for the food truck. I mean, go for the tamale cart. Go for the lady that's like selling stuff out of her home or at the farmer's market. I mean, there's some, legalities and things you have to do for that. But the point is, like, you can start, everyone has resources. You just got to know what those things are.
So what financial skill do you think that, well, every woman over 40, what's a financial skill that they should focus on learning now?
I think we've kind of hammered the budget in here quite a few times already.
Well, say it again because I still don't have one. Okay. Not really. I mean, I kind of do, but not really. Budgeting drives me
budget
crazy.
and staying informed. Kind of, you'd mentioned earlier how a lot of women end up in a space of just not knowing. And all it takes is one day for our lives to completely change or our husband's lives to completely change. And the last thing you want to be is completely out of the loop with where all your money is. I've came across women that didn't even know what their bank accounts were, joint bank accounts with their husband. They don't know what policies they're the beneficiaries of. They don't know what kind of benefits they're covered with. They don't know what kind of retirement account is there. Um, so definitely staying in the know. My previous marriage, I had an avoidant partner, and so that just kind of gave me all of the control. So I've never really been in the space of not knowing, whereas maybe he did. And so when I learned those tools, like I was sure to inform him and like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is where our money was going. And he was self-employed at the time. And one of the best things I did was worked our budget backwards. So I took all of the money we needed, like the non-negotiables. We're buying groceries, we're buying rent, we're buying utilities. And then I gave him a target and I was like, you need to make 3 grand a week. And if you don't make 3 grand a week, you get to tell me what we're not paying. And instead of him handing me $3,000 and me telling him we don't have any money left over. Um, so just staying in the know, the more you know, and that goes with bookkeeping, the more you know your numbers, the better educated decisions you can make about your money.
Yeah. Yeah. Play a game. If you have a spouse or a partner, play the game. Okay. The game is called Where's the Money At? Okay. And you just where do we have all the money? Okay. It's like, okay, well, we got a little money over here in crypto. We've got a brokerage account over here. We've got a 401k that we never rolled over here. We've got a life insurance policy and the paperwork is here. We've got three bank accounts, a savings account, and a CD somewhere, like whatever it is. And even if it's small amounts, sometimes like if something happens, you're going to need to know where that stuff is, how to get it into those accounts, and having yourself a backup plan is gold, right? It's just gold. Along those same lines, um, nobody talks about it until it's an awkward time. But life insurance, you need to have 10x your salary. Put aside if you're in the retirement years and you've got like the investment stuff there, maybe you can float by and not worry about it. But at that point, it's almost too expensive to get anyway. And so, when you're in your 40s, thinking about life insurance, having one that's portable, that's not connected with your job, that you can take with you if you lose the job, that is going to give you a 10-year runway if your spouse passes away. These are just basic protections. And what people don't often know is like you can get medically disqualified for life insurance. I cannot get life insurance. I have type 1 diabetic with one kidney. Can't get it. Big red box pops up on everybody's screen and says, nope, sorry, unless I want to jump through some massive hoops and do some crazy stuff and spend all kinds of money. So yeah, those are just from the future standpoint, like where's our money? What are the passwords? What do we do if something, when 3 to 5 life quakes are going to happen in everybody's life, like how are we prepared for those? Like sit down and be thinking about those conversations. It can be gold.
Yeah, like divorce. Like divorce. Totally, totally unprepared. And people laugh now because it taught me a lesson. We, after 40 years of marriage, still maintain separate finances. I have my income, my credit cards, my car payment, my bank account. He has his income, his credit cards, his car payment, his bank account. We've split the rest of the bills, and it works for us. It works for us. If it's a big purchase like over a set dollar amount, then we sit down and discuss it. But after the bills are paid, what he spends his money on, what I spend my money on, nobody, we don't question. So that stops all the, you spent how much on those pairs of shoes? Or you spent how much on those new pipes for your bike? Because it's his money. I don't care. And it works for us, but people look at us sometimes like, why don't you trust him? Yes, but previous experiences taught me that having money he can't touch is a good thing
Mm.
because it protected me down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one for me, Melody, and that's a real hard one. I would take a different stance because I've been on the opposite side of that, where I'm sitting down with a 75-year-old man, who him and his wife didn't have things joined together, and they're on the struggle bus trying to get projects done around the house that absolutely have to be done, but like it's the finances are not together and it becomes difficult. It takes a certain type of relationship to be able to handle separate finances equitably and well, especially if mama decides to stay home with the kids or start homeschooling, and then all of a sudden, well, I'm out here earning all the money and you're staying at home. Like that can be really, really dicey. And so I understand what you're saying post divorce in retirement, that space kind of being a little bit different. But I've seen that scenario create an inequity in a home that is not very healthy. But again, it takes a special kind of relationship to be able to handle it well.
And maybe I mean, maybe I'm fortunate, but we do have a special relationship. We really do have a special relationship. So not bragging on the hubby. Yes, I am. But Yeah, it works for us. So, but I just love when people look at me like, what's wrong with you? Nothing. This works for us. You do you, we do us. Okay. It works for us.
Yep. And if it's working for you, then there you go. Again, that's a values thing. And so I would never press into that, but I would make sure that we're feeling okay about everything on both sides, you know. One of the things that I love about having a spouse that is different is it makes me grow towards the things that they're gifted in. And so, if my spouse is naturally a giver and we're combining our finances, like a portion of our budget is going towards generosity and helping other people. And if I'm not naturally gifted that way, but we're putting our stuff together, she's bringing me down that path. She's helping me to become that way. But then again, it takes a humble spirit to be able to be like to know that that's not a space or an area that I'm gifted in, but she is. And she's helping to drive our family to care for people and to be more hospitable and invest into the decorations of the home to make it more homely, you know. And so it's like I need to appreciate those things, and I can't really do that if she's doing it with her money and I'm doing something completely different with my money. And so some of that is just for growth's sake, you know. But again, it's harder to grow when you know get much older in those areas because you know you're kind of already stuck in your system.
No, and maybe that's why it works for us because we do like I've learned so much financial stuff. I'll admit financial stuff. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't understand it. I don't understand like I said, I don't understand the bookkeeping class, the accounting class. I took them. They gave me a headache. I hate them. It has zero interest for me. He is like this little financial guru that, we're okay. I'm just going to say that. I'm not, we're okay. We'll be fine. We're fine financially, and it's all mostly because of him. But he takes me with him every time he goes to talk to the guy that, and I understand it better now, which is good. I feel confident that if something happened to him, I could make better decisions. I'm not sure I would keep working with the person he's chosen, but I would understand more about how it all works because of that, because I've hung around him so long that I get it now a little bit. Whereas before I was like, nope, I was going to be one of those wives that's like, I don't know, ask my husband, he takes care of the money. Now that drives me crazy because I do understand and I do know where it is. I know how to get at it if I need it. I know what we have. I know how it works. And that's all because he insisted you need to know this stuff. It's like, okay, fine. Now I can't imagine not knowing that stuff because again, you're right. What happens? What happens if something comes up and I need to have access to it or I need to understand how it works? So yes, it takes I don't know, takes a little bit of different things for different people, I guess. I don't know.
I'm clearly not a very good team partner. I'm more of a solo take control over everything. But maybe one day I'll learn a different habit.
But it's clarity for me. I mean, it's knowing where everything is and how it all works and why this account's making this much money and why when I can and why this account does this and why this account is in this thing and why knowing all of that, I may not understand how it all compounds and grows and everything, but I understand we've got this for this reason, and we've got this for this reason, and we've got this over here for this reason, and I understand all that now. So it really does make a difference. And I think that clarity is good. And I don't know, how do you think financial clarity does change how a woman shows up in the rest of her life? It's given me a little more freedom to do some things because I know and I understand that we're okay and I understand why we'll be okay. And so I'm a little more free, I guess, that like I didn't mind hiring a website developer this year to completely redo my website because I didn't like the one I had. And I felt totally free to do that because I knew that spending that money was not going to hurt us because I knew where everything was and I understood how it worked and I knew we were okay. So I had that freedom and that clarity to go, I need to make this investment in my own business and I have the money to do so.
I would say money stress affects every single area of your life. It will bleed into everything because money is such a, as logical as we should be, it's also a very emotional thing. I mean, it's affecting if you are able to attend the hobbies or the get-togethers that you want to do. So it could affect your self-care. If getting your nails done is something you're used to, then you can't do it anymore. Then you feel some type of way about that. Or, I mean, if you can't pay your bills, like what a terrible feeling. And so then that's affecting how you're showing up at work. That's affecting how you're showing up in your relationships with your spouse, with your child, with your friends. Financial stress affects your physical health. Like you are just stressed, and that's where the inflammation and sickness and illness comes from. And so, like, if you don't gain clarity, the alternative is worse than doing the work. In life, we always got to choose our heart. So, is the heart going to be sitting down and having the conversation and doing the budget, or is the heart going to be not being able to pay our bills and fighting with our spouse and living a life of chronic illness because we're just so stressed out and burnt out? So, knowledge is always going to be the right way to go. And community or not community communication with whoever is in your money decisions. Don't be afraid to ask for the raises. Don't be afraid to reach for the money, to say out loud that you are a woman that wants to make $1 million a year. If that's what you want to do it. But I think, yeah, financial stresses will affect every part of your life, so pick your hard.
Yeah, clarity lends to short-term stress, but long-term confidence. And that's what you're shooting for. Because getting clear on your stuff is a hassle. It's work. You have to build a process. You got to look into it. You got to know. And if it's bad, like it's going to cause stress. But even if it's not bad, if it's positive, it's still stress because it's work and it's extra steps you didn't have to normally do. But ultimately, it gives you a foundation of where you are on your finances. And that lends itself to long-term confidence. That confidence then, like Tiffany said, the stress enters into everywhere. The confidence enters into everywhere as well. And so knowing that you have money set aside for certain things allows you to make an investment into your business. You're confident that you can rebuild a website and it's not going to hurt you, even if it doesn't necessarily drive immediate business. It's more of a long-term play in your business. You're okay because you have all of these other things in a row. You have some clarity around your position that you know it's not going to derail you by making that kind of investment. And it's that way with about everything.
So what do you think it means beyond just a number in a bank account? Because I know so many people look at I have this much money in my bank account. I'm good. What do you think thriving financially actually looks like beyond just that number in your bank account?
So I think the Dave Ramsey baby steps 1 through 7 are the way to go every time. You know, when you're first starting out, it's just getting that $1,000 emergency fund of just knowing I've got cash if something happens. And then you're starting to move to your debt snowball. Now you're taking down your debt. And then you start having 3 to 6 months of your finances saved up. And then you start investing bigger dollars and you start saving. And so that's usually, I have actually like a little bookmark I'll give people of just the baby steps and how that security can get better and better because that's what you're doing by going through those steps is building your safety net wider and wider and wider to catch you. So kind of one of those things I was able to manifest was 20,000 above my expenses so I could buy a house, and like it really happened. And so now that $10,000 just hit my bank account 2 times, I'm like, okay, let's normalize $10,000 deposits. Let's normalize $10,000 deposits. And I'm starting to see those show up more because I'm normalizing having savings, not spending all of the money the time it hits. So yeah, I think the Dave Ramsey baby steps are always going to be the best way to start if you are starting from ground zero.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for some measurement sticks, I think the first one is your cash flow, which comes from your budget, like basically knowing how much money you have left over at the end of the month, right? So your cash flow is like, okay, well, what's that looks like? Then your savings rate. It's something we don't talk about quite very much, but kind of blew my mind when I first read a book called Your Money or Your Life a long time ago. It was really amazing. But this idea that your savings rate as a percentage of total income. So if you made $100,000 take home and you saved 10%, you would be saving back $10,000 a year. That's a 10% savings rate. The idea would be that you could work 10 years and you would be able to take 1 year off. Okay. If your savings rate is 50%, so you have $100,000, you're living on 50, and by the way, I know that's almost impossible, but that's a 50% savings rate. You would work 10 years and you could take how much? 10 years off. Okay. So, because you'll be able to save. So you're living on 50, you're saving 50. If you can get to where you have a 60, 70% savings rate, that it changes your mindset. And it's almost impossible to do, but there's a whole movement of people out here that are trying to hack the system by keeping their expenses low, their income high, increasing that savings rate number. I think that's the second yardstick, I say yardstick measurement metric that I would use. The third one is your net worth. So cash flow, savings rate, net worth. Net worth is your total amount of stuff that you have that is asset bearing, minus the liabilities, And so at any point, that's a measurement stick that you can use to watch grow or change, as well. So you would take all your retirement accounts, you would take all of your savings accounts, all the money you got in the bank, you would add it up, you would minus the amount that you owe in debt, and that would give you, boom, your net worth. And that's the third measurement stick. And so if you're going to use measurement sticks, those are the ones that I would go for. And I think that everybody should use measurement sticks.
So you both talked about stress. If money stopped being a source of stress, what what kind of freedom do you see women stepping into if money stopped being a source of stress for them?
Well, you start having the freedom of truly doing what you want, which is amazing. You can take vacations when you're not stressing about money. You can treat your friends and family. If generosity is something you value, you can be more generous to the people around you. You can give more to your church. You can um, go on better dates. You can afford self care. You can get clothes that fit you because sometimes as women we lose and gain 20 pounds every 3 months. Just gives you like ultimate freedom over your money when you're knowing what you got. You've got a plan in place, and that money stress isn't there anymore. It provides true freedom.
Yeah. I've got this phrase I use that there is no ministry where there is no margin. And just think about ministry from the standpoint of like taking care of others, right? There is no ministry where there is no margin. So you have to have margin of time to be able to hang out with friends for coffee. You've got to have margin of money to be able to give to someone in need. You got to have a room available when someone comes in and you want to be able to give them some hospitality for them to stay in. And so the idea is like if we're growing in margin, we're growing in care for other people. I think that's when you see a stress-free life or a less stressed, financially stressed life allows you to care for others a lot more readily and easily.
So what's one small but powerful financial decision that a woman could make like this month, okay? This month that her future self would thank her for?
Get life insurance. If you don't have life insurance, and a lot of people don't, I often run into people who are just waiting for the right time to get life insurance, but like as the time and the years go by, it really just gets nothing but more expensive. So get like a protection piece, get life insurance in place. You could start saving if you haven't started saving before. Just start automating savings, setting something to the side. Of course, both of those are exactly what I help people do. So that's just where my brain goes.
That's okay.
Give you my email if you're interested. Um, just kidding. But I think those are ways you can just get started and having the money conversations with your spouse or yourself. Sometimes you just got to point the finger at yourself and just know yourself, know your money, and start doing the work.
Yeah, have a purpose. Sit down and decide what it is that you want. Your money is going to flow from your purpose. Like your habits are going to flow from your purpose. And so if there's something that you want to achieve, know what that is, have it written down, have it visual, have it to where you can develop a plan to get in that direction. I can tell people like they need to sit down and do X, Y, and Z, but if they don't have a reason for it, like it's not gonna last. It's gonna last as long as, it takes for them to go get distracted by the rest of life. And so first things first, you gotta know what it is that you want to do. You gotta know what you want to accomplish. You gotta have a purpose. And it needs to be it need you need to be able to visualize it. You need to be able to taste, see, and smell what your life is going to look like, feel like when you achieve that, and then you can make sure that your money is matching that particular goal. But if you don't, but if you short that step, it'll the process of habit building will only last as long as your self-discipline. And I don't know about you guys, but I love the Atomic Habits quote. We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. Okay. And so like I've got goals out the wazoo and they're the same as everybody else's. Like I want to have this, I want to do this, but building a system to get to that goal, now that's a different process altogether.
So if someone listening right now is feeling discouraged, what would you want her to hear? You've given her all this great, you've given us all this great insight and everything, and we're sitting here thinking, I don't have any of that. I don't have a budget. I don't have savings. I never talk to my spouse about the finances. I don't have anything. So if I'm feeling pretty discouraged right now, what would you want her to hear?
There's always hope. There's always improvement potential everywhere. Rome wasn't built in a day. You to really start with the foundation, you've just got to start. Pick up the hammer, and I find that a lot of people are waiting for the day that they wake up and feel differently, or they're waiting for the day it's going to all come together, or the day they're not so tired, or the day the kids didn't piss them off, or the day something. They're always waiting for the next day or the right time, but you really just got to start. You just got to pick up the book. You got to get the notebook and the pencil. You got to sit down. You're not going to achieve long-term great success at first. Like T said, it is short-term stress for long-term gain. It is work. It is changing habits, especially if we're in our 40s and we've been living a certain way for a very long time. And you can't expect yourself just to be good once the first time you sit down and do something. I was playing pickleball with my 5-year-old for the first time the other day, and he just kept sitting down and crying because he was like, I just suck. I can't hit the ball. I'm not doing good. I said, why would you be good? You have never played this game before. You have never hit one of these balls like this before. Why would you be good? And he's like, all right, you're right. I said, yeah, I'm like, let's keep trying. Let's do it a second time, a third time, a fourth time. And now he doesn't sit down and cry so much because he's putting in the reps and doing the practice, and he's just learning. Learning is half of it.
Yeah. I think starting wherever you are today is important. I think, and again, going back to the no shame, no blame, only steps forward. I think looking back and understanding patterns and behaviors is great to do with your therapist and to sit down and to understand that. But when you're ready to move forward, you got to know where you are right now and where you want to go. And so there's time for understanding patterns and development, and then there's times for I'm here and this is the direction I'm heading, and giving yourself some grace for being right where you are, wherever that is, and celebrating the small measurable milestones along the way. I think that that's just irreplaceable. And that's different for everybody. So if you're in that spot, like you were saying, that you just like, I don't have, and I can't, and I don't, and I won't, and I shouldn't, and I wish I would have, and you're in that spot. Like step number one, it's like you got to get around somebody to speak some positivity into that brain, because right now, if that's all you're thinking about, like you're going to stay fixated on that. And so again, back to the thing, find yourself somebody who can speak that positivity into you when you can't necessarily do it for yourself, I think is very, very helpful. And then just give yourself grace.
Well, I wish I had known you both back when we were getting started because, like I said, we're good, we're okay, but in the beginning, it was tough. Okay, I think if I had known either one of you or both of you, we'd be even better off now than we are. So, where can people connect with you or learn more? Especially if they're ready to just stop surviving and start thriving financially.
So for me, my website would be the best place to locate kind of just resources and information about how I do help people, which is rooted-financial.com. There's testimonials from actual clients on there. There's a whole lot of education about different savings plans, different type of retirement plans, different type of life
We almost made it.
insurance that comes with protection. You don't have to die to you. I meet free with my clients. I do not charge fees to meet with my clients, and so we can always sit down for. Oh, I think I'm stuck.
You're
We can
good.
always sit down for a free
You're good.
consultation. Website is a great resource to just get some information.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd plug Tiffany's Wine, Women, and Wealth too. If you happen to be local, you can ever go to that. I hear really great things about it. What is that thing that you say? It's like the book club without the book or something. It's
Yeah, yeah. Do a financial book written by a woman, chapter by chapter, and just kind of pull out some money mindsets, do some worksheets, and some collaboration. It's a lot of fun.
sounds amazing. I thought about, the Bros and Brews, but I haven't kicked it off yet. And so, but it's great what you're doing out in the community. For me, you can find our info at the number five keys, like you open a door, five keys, financial.com. We are a nonprofit coaching group that does financial education and literacy inside of all different community venues. But most of the time, we spend our time sitting down with people, helping them build good financial habits. And sometimes that can happen in 2 sessions, sometimes 8 months, but all of our coaching is this is the great part. As a financial coach, all of our coaching is scholarship, most of the time upwards around 80%. So what that means is I and my team, all of us individually raise support inside the community to make it affordable and accessible to everybody. We think it's one of the most tangible ways to love your neighbor. As a nonprofit, this is what we do, and is just help people with their finances. Five keys financial.com. Find out some information, connect with a coach, reach out to us. We'll get you set up through there. Just make sure that you mention that you heard us on this podcast so that I can make sure that it gets to the right coach. We've got 7 on our staff that are willing and able. We do virtual meetings and in-person meetings. We have a lot of fun with it, and basically teach a lot of great tools and resources and habits along the way.
And I will put all of that information in the show notes so that you can reach out to either one of them. They're both amazing. They're both amazing at what they do. That's why they're here. So this conversation launches our next step series here on the Rebel Tribe podcast. Each episode is going to explore a different area of life where for women who are ready to stop surviving and start making intentional choices about what comes next in our 40s, 50s, 60s, pushing 70. And today, that starts with financial health. So if this episode spoke to you, stay with us because becoming unstuck doesn't mean you're behind. It just means you're paying attention. So thanks for being here, Rebels, and we will see you in the next conversation.